that's a lot of the work, is like helping people rebuild a true identity. And to me, it's like interesting that you talk about, I love that you said, I love your 3 steps and how clear those are of like, you get a vision, you pray, and you do. And to me, that middle step of prayer and of connecting with something higher than yourself, that is a lot of my work. Like, and it's, I don't come from a specific faith. Like, I'll work with people, I don't really care what faith people are, you know, but like a lot of our work is like, when you finally connect to something that you are part of something much greater than just your company and your cars or your money or any of that stuff, you're part of something much bigger. That's when like I feel like life gets really special.
No, for sure. And I think that's the only way I could do what I do, like the only way. And I truly believe that we're spiritual beings, you know, like we're not, you know, flesh and blood, because there's just been way too much things that have happened in my life that are not physical. Like they are spiritual. It's obvious. It's clear as day. And it could be family stuff or business stuff or accidents or, you know, healing and things like that. There's just, it's obvious that there's a greater power. You know, for me, it's Jesus, but, you know, again, like you said, other people believe in different things, but, you know, it's just, I've seen it and lived through it my whole life. But I will say this thing, you know, here, getting in your head and, you know, talking to yourself and the conversations that you're having in your head, just because you pray and just because you live a certain way, it doesn't stop, right? It doesn't just fix everything. So you do have to still battle those constant conversations that you have in your head, you know, that you're not doing enough or you're not working hard enough. Or to your point earlier, like, what is this for? Like, what am I doing? That's probably one of the things that I think sometimes I do battle with, is like, I just said what I said, right? I'm a spiritual being. I believe in the spirit, but yet I'm doing a lot of things that are in the physical realm that are like very like not, you know, is it forever? Like, is it making an impact for the greater, you know what I mean? Like, or am I doing that thing that we're told to do, you know, like build a business and make money and buy cars and, you know what I mean? Like, are we just checking boxes of life and then it's over, you know? All right, man. Well, first of all, Steve, thank you so much for even like reaching out and Dan connecting us. I was extremely humbled that Dan would actually even put this together. Obviously, respect his everything, right? I mean, the guy's legit, a machine. And he really is. And he's very impressive, man. And for him to connect us, I mean, for me, it's like it's an honor. So thank you for doing this and for giving me this platform and just having a conversation. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Manny. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. So thanks, brother. And thanks, shout out to Dan for making this happen.
Yes. So basically how I do it is, I mean, we just talk about a little bit of everything. So, I mean, what I would love to hear, because I was able to read some of your stuff and it was very enlightening. So maybe just kind of give a little bit of a segue into that, is like who you are, what you do. I'm sure it's a long story, but give us kind of the
Cole's nose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Well, my background is, actually my business, like my world started as a musician. And that's what I was really trying to make it as a musician through my early 20s and all that. And then I became an entrepreneur and started building businesses. And built a few successful businesses. But like through that whole time, really my whole life, since my teens, I've been very interested in spirituality, been really interested in, you know, like kind of the broader questions of what is this life about? What is going on in the, you know, in the universe? What is God? You know, kind of these like broader questions of what's going on. And that's been the background of my life, is spiritual seeking and exploration and looking at wellness. So like that's taken me in a lot of directions, right? So I spent a bunch of years studying and teaching in mindfulness and in wellness, kind of like mental wellness, and a lot of lifestyle habits, kind of stuff that Tim Ferriss was talking about for a long time around sleep and optimization and morning routines and all that kind of stuff. But in my mid 30s, I'm kind of in my early mid 40s now. I came back to psychedelics. I had worked with psychedelics early in my life, in my teens and 20s. And then I kind of cut all that out and started being an adult for a while. And now I'm reverting. But I kind of came back to psychedelics. And when my wife and I, we moved out of the city and we moved to a more remote location. As soon as we got here, it just occurred to us that we wanted to start working with psychedelics. And so over the last 7-8 years, we've been basically building out our our property to host people and building Enfold, which is now a company that we offer different types of psychedelic retreats. And then I do a lot of basically one-to-one coaching and psychedelic work with high performers. So I work with a lot of like basically generally higher net worth people, mostly men, but some women as well, who have basically hit a threshold in their success, financial success. And then they're kind of looking at their life going, well, what does this all mean? I'm sure you've probably worked with people like that in your world too, where they're kind of trying to figure out like, what's this life actually about? And so I'm often helping people develop a more spiritual context for their life and how to be more in service and how to find more purpose and how to feel more connected. So that's a lot of the framing of our work.
And this is in British Columbia. Did I get that right? Is that?
Yeah, we're on a small island just outside of Vancouver up in Canada. Yeah.
Wow. And it's beautiful up there, right?
It is. It's beautiful. And you and I are like basically on like polar opposite points of like kitty corner across the continent, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
It actually is kind of cool though that we can do this, like
it is wild.
Yeah.
You're on the water basically in the far southeast point, right? Like, right. And I'm on the northwest. So yeah. And I've never been down to Miami, so I got to make it down there sooner or later. It sounds beautiful down there too. Definitely.
There's a lot of people probably on the other side of psychedelics this week with Ultra going on. I don't know if you're familiar with Ultra, but it's
what's that?
So music? What is it, guys? It's called Miami Ultra Week. Yeah. So they set up literally downtown, massive outdoor stages. And hundreds of thousands of people come and they do these, DJs go from like noon till like 8 a.m. Like it's wild.
Oh, wow.
And
wow.
It is, it's pretty crazy, but a lot of people doing some crazy things on that. Yeah. And I know that's the other side of it, but
totally
the abusing of it, but yeah, but,
like the truth is like, there's a place for recreational psychedelics. There's nothing wrong with enjoying substances, if you're not allowing it to kind of control your life and take you in wrong directions. So there's kind of two, psychedelics they can be fun socially and recreationally as well. We happen to work with it in a pretty specific, pretty intentional way, but that's all good. Once in a while, we just, in our space, it's really funny because like all the people who work in our space, we talk about when we talk about psychedelics, we're often talking about, the medicine, and we use the term medicine a lot. But then when I'm hanging out with people who work in this space and it's like 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. On a Saturday night and we're in a kitchen and we're about to do some MDMA and dance, and it's like, okay, guys, it's not medicine anymore. It's drugs. Let's just keep it real. Right. Let's keep it real. It's okay. It's okay to enjoy ourselves. But, there's two worlds. It's all good.
So is it strictly DMT or is it a multitude of different things?
Yeah, so our work is primarily with 5-MeO DMT, which is the strongest psychedelic on the planet. It's like a very, very intense experience, very unlike most of the traditional psychedelics that people think about, like LSD and mushrooms and ayahuasca. Like most of those are going to be like multi-hour long, very visual, kind of story-based. You're like sort of kind of in like these other worlds, and 5-MeO DMT is certainly takes you out of time and space in a certain way, but it's not visual. It's very short. It's very intense. It's much more of like this somatic experience that happens. it's pretty wild. It's very difficult to describe, but we primarily work with 5-MeO, and then we do a bit of work with some other substances as well, mostly other unregulated substances. Canada is kind of interesting because we have a few, like 5-MeO DMT is unregulated here, so we can work with it. I don't know if legally, but we can work with it in a space that it's not illegal, effectively.
Right. And where do you get it? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, we work with labs. There's 2 labs in Canada that produce, and then there's a lab in the Netherlands that produces for us. One thing we've been really careful about is having direct relationships with the manufacturers for the substances we use, so that we have really clear chain of custody and we can just ensure safety and like really high quality substances. So it took us a while to build those types of relationships, but because things are unregulated here, it's not super hard to find. It's kind of wild actually in Vancouver now. Canada has a bit of a different energy around drugs because we don't have the DEA, right? And the DEA in the US is like a big corporation in the business of repossessing people's stuff, and arresting people for drugs. Canada doesn't really have that. So while, things like mushrooms are still illegal here, it's a much more tolerant sort of environment. So there's actually like mushroom stores starting to open up in downtown Vancouver here, where you can walk in and buy mushrooms. And they're technically not legal, but they're sort of just functioning. It's kind of interesting.
I think we're seeing a little bit of that with marijuana in the US, like where there's like a gray area, like where they say it's illegal, but yet they're selling it in stores for recreational. It's like, it has to do with the amount.
Yeah. So they haven't legalized in Florida yet then, right?
No. Well, see, that's the thing. That's why I think there's a gray area, because there's literally stores you can walk into and just buy it. So for recreational, but yet it's not legal. Like I literally just saw a sign about like pre-rolls, and then I don't know. I haven't really dived into that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a huge,
substance
marijuana
guy
person. Yeah. Or substance guy in general. So,
yeah. Do you have any experience with psychedelics yourself? I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. It's up to you.
No, you're fine. Not really. I would say, like obviously smoke weed, and that's not considered.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't consider that a psychedelic.
No, some people do, but I don't really know.
Yeah. I've like kava and kratom, like I've tried stuff like that, but again, that's not really psychedelic. It's more like mood enhancers and stuff like that. Yeah. But I've never. So my history was I was around a lot of people, and even some family that did it. And so I experienced it probably in a negative way, seeing people like losing their mind on it, so it kind of made me feel like, nah, I don't really want to go down that path. Yeah. So, and again, it's just, that was my personal experience, is that witnessing people kind of going off the rails with certain substances. So, and I've always been, like I didn't drink until I was 22. I didn't, I didn't have sex till I was 21. I didn't, like, I was always kind of like my dad was hardcore. So it was like, you're in the gym, you're very disciplined, So when it came to, the wild stuff, but then I got into college and I certainly did ecstasy and did some of that stuff. But then once I moved on and graduated and became a strength coach and then moved to Miami and started, I've literally been, for the last 21 years, just blinders on, building a brand, building a business.
Yeah, I understand.
And again, not to say I'm not having fun and I don't have fun. And certainly it's been an up and down roller coaster, and I have my fair share of fun, but yeah, just been building a brand and business. So it's been very, a clear commitment of what, like I was telling my brother this the other day, that as a visionary, and I feel like I kind of am, is when you see the end of the vision, then you get all this like applause and congratulations while you still have not completed the vision that you saw in your head, then you just don't stop. Like you don't, like, it's not like you open up a new, like for me, a new gym, or you start a new product, or you do these things. And yes, it's great. But to me, it's just putting another brick, on the building that you're really trying to build. And so I see a much bigger vision for what I'm trying to accomplish than people around me even do. So I just don't stop at that.
Yeah.
I love it, you know.
What is the vision? Like when will you feel like you've achieved what you're trying to do?
I know. So that's an interesting question, because I oftentimes alone say to myself, am I ever going to be satisfied? You know, like, am I ever going to reach that point where I'm like, I did it, you know, because a lot of people think I've already done it, and I don't feel that way. But when I first started this, I was very intentional with the 3 kind of pillars. So legacy is the name of the gyms.
Yeah.
The Pitbull is the logo, and No Days Off is the motto or the movement. And I was very intentional with like pushing that and pushing that and pushing that. And it took about 15 years, honestly, until people really caught on. And so No Days Off is my just do it. And the Pitbull is my Nike swoosh, to kind of put it in comparison. So for me, it's like, you know, that's where I want to take it. I want to be as big as those type brands, you know, to have a recognizable world. You know, when someone says No Days Off, they immediately know what it's about. And so that's really the vision, and to help, you know, obviously to help as many people as I can. And I constantly get people every single day that say, you know, either your gym saved my life, or No Days Off changed my life, or stuff like that. So that's what keeps you going during the times where you feel like it's moving like a turtle, or it's not going as fast as you want to. So in those moments, it kind of gives me that extra mode. I tell people all the time, like, it's those little comments that keep me going, you know? So
100%. Yeah. I listened to a few of your interviews, and one of them was with, someone, I'm blanking on his name. Haka is the last name, but he's involved in your water biz.
What's his last name?
Was it Haka or?
Haka.
No.
Justin Saka. Sorry,
my bad. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
I just like hearing his story. Like, you know, you had such a big impact on him. You had a big impact on his family. Like, that kind of transformation is pretty powerful when it happes. Like, when you get to see it.
It's tremendous. Like, even I have Hebrew on my arm literally because of his family.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was I trained like 16 of his family members, and they all were extremely overweight. And actually, one of the daughters, that was one of the big ones, that sounds terrible, but you know what I'm saying, the bigger girl, but is now a coach. She's now like a fitness coach. It's amazing. And it's just so cool to see. And then Sandy Saka, his uncle, the sweetest man, he said to me during those sessions, this was in 2010, around there, he was like, if you can put in a bottle how you make me feel, then you'll be a billionaire. And I was like, well, I put it in a can. So, you know, like, so it's like, it's just cool to have like those kind of memories back when.
You know, it's interesting, because I ask like what the vision is, because like most of the people, so our retreats are really, you know, it's a broad array of people from all over the world, really, who come to our retreats. But the folks that I coach privately are all really folks that have like hit a certain threshold where they sold the business for, you know, 8-9 figures. They've kind of hit, or they're, you know, making millions of dollars a year, and their business is humming, and they're working 3 hours a week. And, you know, they've kind of reached these levels of success. And what's fascinating is it's very universal, that like we have a lot of unconscious conditioning that is driving that need for success. And it's partly why like we don't ever recognize it when we get some success. Like, we're kind of like, I don't know, like, I need more than that. That's not enough. Enough. And so it's a really interesting journey. And the work I do is like kind of helping, and I've gone through this myself, you know, of like just recognizing that I can keep driving myself at this rate, but I'm actually like, at a certain point you get diminishing returns. And so it's kind of like, what's this all for? There's nothing wrong with success, and making money is great. Like, having success is super important. And I think like everybody should work hard in their life, you know?
Right.
And then also it's really interesting, because, you know, it's pretty consistent for anybody who's successful. You sooner or later, you'll hit a point where you'll go, okay, like, when is enough? What what is the end game here? Like how many units or whatever do I have to do?
Right. Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing that happens. And can I ask how old are you?
46.
You're 46. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm 43 and it's just an interesting phase. And like, I've seen, like, I'm coaching a couple guys that are like in their 30s going through that, but they're like kind of one of those guys that are like way ahead of the curve and they make crazy money early on, you know, they kind of hit a pinnacle, and other guys are like, you know, in their 50s and 60s. And it's a really interesting phase of life. But I think the main thing is, like, it sounds like you've also found deep purpose in what you do. It's not just like moving widgets. It's not just for the money. It's like, it's for the impact that you're having as well, which is cool.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I truly believe if I did only have the drive for money, I would have quit a long time ago, like a long time ago. Cause it's, you know, it's hard. Like it's not, what we're trying to do is not easy. And, you know, managing people and dealing with people and, you know, investors and all this stuff it's definitely not an easy route, but again, it goes back to like, I've seen it. So a lot of times the way I've lived my life is I've literally seen something and then I've gone and then I've prayed about it and then I've gone and do it. So it's like, I get an intuition or whatever. It says this, I need to do this. And then I pray about it to make sure it's from the right, you know, person know, and then I was funny. One of my younger staff sent this text today. She sent her a little Bible journal entry, and it literally talked about how, you know, pray about it, believe about it, but then you still got to go work for it, you know? And so that's for me is kind of like my formula is like, you know, listen and be open to new ideas, new challenges, new scary stuff, and then pray about it. Make sure that it's God telling you to do it, and then work your ass off to go accomplish that thing. And so it was very clear to me a long time ago that I was meant for something bigger. And I thought it was football, you know, I thought I was going to be, you know, in the NFL and all that. And then I broke my back for the second time. Wow. And that was taken away from me. And at that time it was very like, you know, depressing, like extremely depressing and extremely like, what the heck am I going to do with my life now?
How old were you when that happened?
21 or 22 when I broke my back the second time. I broke my back first in junior year in high school when I was 17.
Shit.
And then they told me I would never play sports again. I would barely walk, you know, all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, right. And so I rehabbed myself with the help of a chiropractor, and then came back, played my senior year, won defensive player of the year in Alabama, and then went to Auburn, earned a scholarship, and then played 3 years there. And then the year I was supposed to start, my redshirt sophomore year, going into that season, I broke my back again.
Wow. And
so it was like, I went from 240 pounds with like a 22-inch neck to, in 3 months, went to 185, 190 from, actually, that's when I experimented with like ecstasy and partying and stuff like that, because I'd never done it before. Yeah. But I was really in a sad state. But then it was literally about 3 months. It was exactly 3 months that just a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? So I was like, I'm going to dive into exercise science. That was my major. And I'm going to figure out why I did what I did to myself and how not to let other people be in that position. Wow. So I really felt like my fracture in my back was a byproduct of bad training, bad advice, too much lifting, too heavy, wrong form, like all these things that you know, and again, I'm not blaming them, but what I did to myself. And so I really dove into that to say, okay, I can actually help people to not be in these and put them in this position. So that's when I started training athletes and becoming a strength coach. And then it just kind of morphed into more business. But
amazing, man. That's amazing. Like not a lot of people get that kind of, I think of those moments, like when you're 21, you've got your whole life in front of you. You think you kind of got the whole plan, right? And you're on this trajectory, and then it all just comes to an end. And like, I know I've talked to a lot of pro athletes who go or athletes who go through that. And like, as a musician, I was trying to make it as a musician. I had my whole life, like, I didn't think about anything except
Right.
music, like my whole, that was it. Like, I was going to be a famous rock star, that was it. And at a certain point, I had to just accept that was not going to be the play, and I had to go through a process of figuring out who I was without that identity, like putting down that identity and picking up a new one. That's amazing that you were just, it's like such an amazing coming into yourself process. Like, I think of it as like an ego death process. Part of you has to die in order for the next version of you to come through,
Yeah. And it wasn't, it wasn't instant by any means. And I'm sure maybe you dabbled in that too, like where you kind of like, cause like there was a period of time where, you miss, like as an athlete, you miss that competition. So, and when I didn't have it, there wasn't CrossFit and High Rocks. There wasn't any of that stuff to like, to channel that. So, but there was like MMA fighting and stuff like that. So I dabbled in stuff like that. But for the most part, I really got enjoyment from training people and there, I had like a knack for motivating people to do more than they thought they could do. And it just kept happening, whether it was the housewife that didn't have a butt and now she does, or the, the lawyer that weighed 300 pounds and he wanted to, lose 100 pounds, or it was the professional athlete that wanted to be stronger, faster, and have more mobility. So it was just, for some reason, I had that knack to like get people to believe in themselves a little bit more and to push themselves more. And so I just kept doing that. And it was, for the most part, it was gratifying. Like for the most part, it kind of, but I would say it took about 10 years though, for it to all like to finally say, okay, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. I'm not going to be, you know what I mean? Like it took a long time to,
man.
My wife will tell you, I'm still the guy that like walks in a room and needs all the attention. You know what I mean? Like it's like, that never stops, but I tell her, I'm like, you never had 100,000 people screaming your name, the
adrenaline of that, it must be, I've never had that big a crowd, but like being on stages and all that kind of stuff, the adrenaline is something else.
Right.
Man. And like the flow of energy that is flowing through you in those moments is, it's very powerful, man. It's very powerful.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to travel with Scott Stapp, the lead singer of Creed.
Yeah.
And I trained him for about a year and a half and traveled with him and watched him do his album and having like really deep talks about what it is. I mean, can you imagine like being Scott Stapp? Like it's like,
wow,
like, and he, when that was taken away from him, like, and again, he still has it a little bit, but not at the level that they were literally the greatest rock band ever for a period of time. And that's when he struggled with drugs and alcohol and things like that, because when it goes, it goes. Like when it's gone, it's gone. And it's earlier you said to find who you are because you've been told you're a football player, you're a football player, you're a football player. And even growing up in the South, I was very into music and singing and dancing and things like that. And that was like, you're not doing that. It was like, you're going to be a football player.
Yeah.
So,
football players don't dance. They don't sing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not doing that. So even like kind of then trying to go back to some of that stuff was like, you almost kind of missed your chance, like it feels like that sometimes, so.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's super interesting, man. That's it is a long process going through that kind of, like a lot of the work that I do with people is helping them to separate what they do from who they are. And so like there's so much we start, and when we're young though, we kind of just wrap our identity around what we do completely, and like that's a lot of the thing when I'm working with like a 50-year-old guy and he's just sold his business for a tremendous amount of money. He should be on top of the world, but suddenly his whole identity just gets stripped away from him in that transaction, right? He won that transaction by all accounts, and he's suddenly left feeling like he doesn't know who he is anymore. And he's having to figure out like, what is actually, who am I? Like, who am I outside of the last 25 years of building this company, or the last decade of building this company, or however long it had been. Like that's a lot of the work, is like helping people rebuild a true identity. And to me, it's like interesting that you talk about, I love that you said, I love your 3 steps and how clear those are, of like you get a vision, you pray, and you do. And to me, that middle step of prayer and of connecting with something higher than yourself, that is a lot of my work. Like, and it's, I don't come from a specific faith. Like I'll work with people. I don't really care what faith people are,
Right.
as long, but like a lot of our work is like this, when you finally connect to something, that you are part of something much greater than just your company and your cars or your money or any of that stuff. You're part of something much bigger. That's when, like, I feel like life gets really special.
No, for sure. And I think that's the only way I could do what I do, like the only way. And I truly believe that we're spiritual beings. Like we're spirit, like we're not, flesh and blood. Like I truly believe because there's just been way too much things that have happened in my life that are not physical. Like they are spiritual. It's obvious. It's clear as day. And it could be family stuff or business stuff or accidents or, healing and things like that. It's obvious that there's a greater power. For me, it's Jesus. But, again, like you said, other people believe in different things. But, it's just, I've seen it and lived through it my whole life. So, like my mom is like a prayer warrior, my mom and dad, but those prayer moms, like where you can, you feel it. So that's amazing. That's what gets me through, is knowing that. But I will say this thing, here, getting in your head and, talking to yourself and the conversations that you have in your head, that, it doesn't, just because you pray and just because you live a certain way, it doesn't stop, right? It doesn't just fix everything. So you do have to still battle those constant conversations that you have in your head, that you're not doing enough, or you're not working hard enough, or you're not, all those, or to your point earlier, like, what is this for? Like, what am I doing? Because that's probably one of the things that I think sometimes I do battle with, is like, okay, I just said what I said, right? I'm a spiritual being. I believe in the spirit, but yet I'm doing a lot of things that are in the physical realm that are like very like not, is it forever? Like, is it making an impact for the greater, you know what I mean? Like, or is it just, or am I doing that thing that we're told to do, like, like build a business and make money and buy cars and build and have a family and like, you know what I mean? Like, are we just checking boxes of life and then it's over, So it's definitely something that, I think about, I pray about, I try to find a deeper meaning than just making money and building a brand and building a business. I would like to think, so no days off, and I'm sure you've found by that. So no days off is never taking a day off on you. It's a commitment to becoming your best self. The reason why I did that was because I truly believe that, like, if we are gifted life, if we wake up and we're alive and we put our feet on the ground and we have breath, then why not absolutely make the most of it? Like, why not be intentional in our interactions and, look people in the eye. And if we say, how are you doing today? Actually listen to their response and, make people feel better when they walk away, like say hey to strangers, like, just do stuff intentionally. Like, don't just go through life like, just, it's like just think about interactions and what you're doing to yourself. Like, what are you reading? What are you listening to? And all these things. So that's really and so I say that to say, I hope that No Days Off is doing that for other people, that they are buying into the message, not just the product or not just the service, but they're buying into this movement of improvement and bettering themselves, so that, and my whole philosophy is that if you better yourself, those around you get the benefit of it. And then it creates this domino effect, right? Like, the better I become, hopefully my wife responds to that, my child, my friends, my colleagues, my staff, strangers or whatever. So I don't know why I just said that, but
I love all that, man. I love all that. It's also really interesting the way you describe, like, you can pray, but you're still going to have to kind of battle the ego and battle the thoughts in your head and stuff. It's really interesting because in psychedelics, that's one of the core messages, because, so 5-MeO DMT, what it's often referred to as the God molecule. And the reason for that is that the experience of 5-MeO at its peak is a full dissolution of you. So there's, like, at the peak of the experience, Manning dissolves and you become part of everything. And there's an experience of actually viscerally experiencing what I would call God. And some people aren't that comfortable with that word, but for me, that's the only word that makes sense. But experiencing God, and then you come back, and then you it's quite fast. Like, it's kind of wild how quick it is, but then you come back, and you come back into your personality, and your thoughts are back and everything. And then it's this process of really making sense of, okay, well, now I know that I'm that, and I'm part of that, and I've got all these thoughts telling me I should be afraid, or I should be ashamed, or I shouldn't do this, and you're like, you've got all these. We all have conditioning. We are all, through things that happen to us, how we are raised, whatever happened, we all have got, these limiting belief systems that are mostly unconscious, that are driving a lot of our behavior. And so, like, even like the higher the performer, I find that the more that there is an underlying kernel of fear that's been driving a lot of the behavior. And for me, it's like, when you can swap out that fear with with understanding the true connection that you are to all things, and like be fueled from that, like, which to me is like being fueled from love. Like this, it's just this tremendous release of energy and like alignment. And where, like you say, like that's why I love your second step so much. I think too many people get in a vision and then just start doing, but they don't actually pray, or they don't actually contemplate, is this really aligned with like a greater good or a greater purpose, or, is this really, for something bigger than just my ego, like,
right.
And so, but it's super interesting that you kind of say, because a lot of people have these experiences with the God molecule, with 5-MeO, and then they wonder, like, oh, that now I'm just going to live like this forever. I'm just going to know this forever. But of course, the thoughts come back, and you're still going to be processing. What's powerful about this medicine is that it kind of separates you from your thoughts in a way. It almost like takes the voice in your head and like pulls it out, and you can like, you start to witness it more clearly. Like, you're more what I call our true self, which is like, to me, our higher self, connected to all things, connected to the universe, connected to God. That's like when we're really centered. And I'm sure you felt this a lot in your life. I can tell, and I'm sure you help others feel this, is like, there's just a knowing that's inside of you. And then there's all this part of your personality that's kind of like getting in the way and running an agenda and playing games and trying to beat the competition, as opposed to just doing a great thing, or, like, so it's like you're kind of constantly working through these layers of our personality system, to stay connected to that true self. And that's like the fundamental work that I'm doing. It's really like, so it's very interesting. It's very similar, I think, to how you operate. Actually, it's very similar.
Yeah. Did you know that the Bible, 300, how crazy is this? 365 days out of, 365 times in the Bible, it says, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
I think like what's wild to me is so I've studied a lot of, Jesus's words in the Bible, and I've also read some of the Gnostic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Gnostic Gospels, or these are like Gospels that were found later that were basically at the time, they were basically, because people were starting to build some power structures around the word of Jesus, and like that kind of thing was happening, right? Then there's all these other people reporting on what Jesus was saying, but they were basically like heretics, and they had to go into hiding, and they had to hide their writings and all this stuff. But a ton of those were found. So it's really interesting. You can kind of see these different perspectives of what Jesus was saying. And like he talks a lot about the light. And what's so wild in 5-MeO, when you consume 5-MeO, the first thing that most people report is just a burst of white light that just washes over you, and like a dissolving into that light, right?
Oh, wow.
which is, I mean, how many references in the Bible are there about light, and about that, basically about that same thing. So it's really fascinating. But we've also had, people from Muslim faith or from the Jewish faith come who are religious in their own right, and they go through this experience and they go, yeah, the Quran says this. It says the same thing. Like it's so fascinating. I find
there is a lot of similarities. Yep.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And it's been a very interesting process for me, because I've always felt like like you said, like feeling like a spiritual being, but I've never really known where to place that. And I would never have used the word God back in the day, because I just didn't grow up that way. And through my work with 5-MeO, that's actually really connected me to a level, like a connection with God and a connection of a higher power, in a way that it's just been like, wow, that's when I started reading more about what Jesus had to say. And like, there's just some really incredible insight there. It's amazing.
You made me think, is the DMT the same one they talk about, like the toad?
Yeah. Okay. So this gets confused a lot.
Because I heard Mike Tyson talk about he did DMT and had a conversation with the toad or something like that.
Yeah. So there's NN-DMT. When people talk about smoking DMT, they usually talking about smoking DMT, which is different. It's basically the active ingredient in ayahuasca. And when you smoke DMT, it's a very visual experience. Often when people are talking about going into these other realms where there's like entities and beings and all sorts of stuff, that's DMT. 5-MeO DMT, unfortunately, the names are very confusing, but 5-MeO is also found in the venom of the Sonoran desert toad, so smoking toad, or bufo. And that's what Mike Tyson's talked about a lot, is his experiences with toad, which when you read his, you listen to him talk about that, he really finally found the healing he needed to kind of transition, man. That guy was like such an incredible force in this world, but so tortured, man. Like had such a hard life, man. Like, and
people treated him like crap. So
he just, you think about being that powerful, like being Black and that powerful at that age and that time, like how he was kind of like this scary but amazing kind of superstar, and then he lost it because his only role model, Cuss, like passed away right before he won his first belt, and the guy just had like a very challenging life. Came from like just he came from nowhere basically, and had to figure his whole life out, man. I'm fascinated by him, but really like lived a very tortured life, and it's amazing to see the personality change that he went through after working with Toad or 5-MeO a whole bunch of times. It just like transformed him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when he talks about it, I mean, he gets really emotional, and he's such a sweet guy now, like the way he talks, and he just seems like he's the lover of people even more than ever. So, yeah,
man. I know it's kind of rad to see him sort of flourishing in his how old is he now? He's got to be like 60 or something.
58.
58, yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because all this stupid Jake Paul stuff which I mean, that's going to be interesting. So
who do you have for that fight?
So this is how I feel about it. Like, Mike Tyson was like that's like a hero, to guys like us. Like, like when we would stay up late and watch his fights and his walkout, and like, I mean, he's like the Michael Jordan of fighting. So
absolutely,
like that's, so to even consider that this little, well, I shouldn't say little now. I mean, he's grown up, but they just posted. Did you see the meme where it says, "This is Jake Paul at 19," and he's dancing to, he's like dancing to like Animal Top. I gotta send it to you.
I gotta look that up.
It's actually, and to Jake Paul's credit, like he's funny. Like the guy's funny. Like he was a cute little, 19-year-old kid being funny, and he is funny, But then they switched to 19-year-old Mike Tyson, like knocking dudes out, like So it was it's funny to see, or crazy to even think that when Mike was 19, he was doing that. When Jake Paul was 19, he's dancing around in his underwear. So making YouTube videos. So to me, if Mike Tyson doesn't knock his ass out, I'll be devastated. Like, you know, if for some reason Jake Paul knocks out our hero, you know, it's like, but then at the same time, being a logical person that understands age and
Totally.
skill and things like that, there's a really good chance that Jake Paul could actually win because he's younger, faster, sharper. Like, that's just a fact. I mean, they even showed a video recently of Mike Tyson was being wheeled around in the airport in a wheelchair because his sciatica was so bad. So it's like,
oh, no way.
Yeah, like, and you don't know how Mike, I mean, hopefully he went down to Tijuana and got some stem cells or something. Like, I hope he did something, like, and then I hope he knocks his ass out. But, you know, and then you don't know if it's all for show and this is some gimmick and that they're just doing this to make money and hopefully it's just like a cool expedition and they go 10 rounds beating the crap out of each other like for fun. Like, you don't know that either. So.
Yeah, like there was all those kind of rumors that they were going to be wearing
head guards
and like the big gloves and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, like he's 58, man. I mean, to be honest, like if he collects a big paycheck and he probably needs the money, he spent a lot of money and lost a lot of money, and good for him. I don't know what to think.
It's one of those tough things, right? Because you applaud the hustle of Jake Paul to get it done, like to do something like that, to get Mike Tyson to fight you on Netflix. Like it's kind of a badass event, like to put together, like to even think that that's a possibility. And for him to pull that off is genius. It's great it's great entertainment. But then at the same time, Jake Paul's out there saying that he's a serious boxer and he wants to be taken as a serious boxer. So that's where I have a struggle with, is because if you were a serious boxer trying to grow in the ranks and trying to become a champion, you're not fighting 58-year-old Mike Tyson. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there. There is. But you can't hate on the publicity and the event and the money side of it and I mean, kudos to both of them. They're both going to make a fortune probably, and people are going to tune in. But for me, it's kind of sad. It'd be like LeBron and Michael Jordan playing one-on-one, and us like literally thinking, like that would not be cool for them to do that right now. Like,
that would not be cool.
That's not cool. Like, that's just not cool. Please don't do that to the GOAT. Like,
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I don't even know how. Oh, we got there because we were talking about Toad. That's right. I was like,
I know, right? We really went up. How do we end up talking about Jake Paul of all people?
Jake Paul. But see, like that's the magic trick that he's pulled off with this, right?
Exactly. He's getting everybody to talk about it, which is genius. It's genius. It is.
Yeah, but you're right. Like I don't know if he's serious about building a real career as a boxer, that doesn't really help him because it's more of a spectacle than anything. But anyway,
100%. Yeah.
Interesting, man. Yeah. I don't know. What I'm interested, like, what's the conversation amongst people in your circles about psychedelics these days? Because I live in a bit of a bubble, right? So, like, you said you were, I think before we started recording, I think you mentioned that you and your brother, was it you and your brother talking about it, or is you and somebody were just talking about psychedelics?
Well, what happened was he was at a gas station. And there was this guy obviously on something crazy, acting crazy. And so we were talking about drugs in general. And I would say I get offered mushrooms at least once a week, once a week. And then I think I've been offered to go on these, you said it earlier.
Ayahuasca?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Ayahuasca retreats. I probably get asked at least once a month. From former football players, high level business people, like, hey, I'm doing this retreat. Do you want to go with me? It's amazing. I've had business partners that have done it that said it's unbelievable and all this stuff. So my brother and I were just talking, like, we were just kind of like, nah, that's not, it's just never been a thing that I've been drawn to. But you certainly, it's everywhere right now in my, in conversation. They're definitely talking about, I had a guy come into the gym and he was talking about smoking DMT with like some pen. And he was like, oh, I can get you one if you want one. I was like, that sounds crazy. But that.
Yeah.
In Miami, like microdosing, I might be saying it wrong, but microdosing mushrooms is a thing. It's definitely a thing.
Okay.
It's definitely popular in Miami. And then ayahuasca, is that how you say it? Ayahuasca. Yep. Ayahuasca retreats. I've been hearing and seeing a lot of people I know do that.
Yeah.
I would not. You're the first that I've heard about retreats for this.
Yeah.
I've not heard that before, so this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then we have some doctors here that are doing ketamine IVs for depression and experiences. And like I watched a video the other day. They do it in a hyperbaric chamber, and it was this one particular guy. He was an older guy. He literally sang like for like an hour, like these beautiful songs, and it was like crazy. They put it on Instagram. It was wild. I mean, on ketamine. So, but see, for me, my experience is like I witnessed like drug dealers cooking that in kitchens and stuff and like selling it on the black market. So it's like, and watching people in college in the K-hole and like tripping out and losing their minds. So that doesn't really sound like, now to hear people are doing this in IVs, it's wild, it's crazy to hear. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you market it, and I don't know where you're taking, like where you want to take the company, but it's definitely starting to get popular. And then I've also heard there's starting to be like a lot of research behind this stuff, and it's opening the eyes. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the way I see it, they're trying to kill us with pharmaceuticals and alcohol. And so, to me, it's a conversation that definitely needs to be had, because antidepressants, as we know, are literally killing people, making people worse, making people walk around like zombies with no personalities and anything, So I think to me, if there is a medicinal, a true medical way to help people, and for people to, as I like the way you said it, to see the light and to find themselves in a better way, then I applaud you. I think it's phenomenal. Like, just, and especially the way I went through your kind of protocol, the one you told me not to share.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So I read through that, and the way you kind of break it down, and it's very powerful stuff. I mean, it doesn't, if I'm being honest, like for me, I don't know what it is, but I don't feel like I didn't read and be like, oh, I want to do that. Like I didn't really feel like that. Yeah. But maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe I need to sell my business for $100 million, for $1 billion. And then I'll be calling you like, I need something to do. So maybe that's where I'm just not ready, So,
some people for me, this is, psychedelics aren't for everybody. But most of the people that we work with are like, part of what we're doing in this space and what we see our role is making psychedelics really basically much more accessible, right? Like we definitely consider this spiritual work, but we're not pushing some specific agenda or some specific ideology, or we're not bringing a very like a lot of people can only access psychedelics in very shamanic environments, which is kind of taking a lot of the culture out of South America and like lots of more like woo-woo kind of stuff. And for us, it's like really, what's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all good, though.
What is your opinion on the ayahuasca?
I think ayahuasca, well, okay, I'll just give my personal opinion. Like, I think ayahuasca has, it can be a beautiful experience. It's got really powerful potential. I think you got to be very careful about where you seek it and what type of environments. Like I know down in Florida, there's all sorts of ayahuasca. Some people call themselves ayahuasca churches or whatever or ayahuasca retreats. And I think a lot of, and not just in Florida, but everywhere, there's just a tremendous amount of people pouring ayahuasca. And I think that a lot of times it's not very well supported. So like you kind of think about these experiences as a serious like dysregulation of what you thought you knew. It's like really an opening into another realm of your spirit. Like it's a deeply transformative experience, but it's also a deeply dysregulating experience. And that's kind of the point. It's like the point is to get you out of your egoic perception into understanding things from a broader perspective. But when you're in an environment that doesn't feel particularly safe, or you didn't spend time getting to know your facilitators, or they didn't onboard you or prep you for the experience, or they don't offer any integration or kind of support afterwards, like that can just basically be very unuseful, or it can be actually detrimental, where people are left feeling confused, dysregulated, depressed. Like it can bring out a lot of, it can bring out a lot of trauma. And so if you're not in a proper space with proper support to actually work through that trauma, you can just be left in a pretty bad state. So I just think you got to be very careful about where you do it and how you and who you do it with. Right. And like for us, you know, we work very carefully around that. We have a whole preparation program and an integration program on our website. We offer prep calls and screening, and like I meet with everybody individually for at least a couple of hours before they come to see us. And there's group work, and there's journaling and reflection, and there's a video series you got to watch. Like there's all this learning and education to make sure that you're prepared and ready for this experience. And then coming out of it, we offer direct support for everybody that comes through. And we have an integration program, which is essentially like ways of bringing context and understanding to what just happened and how to move back into your life. And we interact with people's coaches and therapists to help them understand how to support the person. So we do a lot of work to make this really safe and really useful. Right. But ayahuasca itself can be a beautiful experience. I would say that there's a couple of things. One thing is like ayahuasca is generally served in a more shamanic lens, which means that the basic the ayahuasca ceremony is that, let's say you're in a room, you might be in a room with 20 people. Everybody's taking this psychedelic. And then the idea with ayahuasca generally is that you're on your own. Like nobody interacts with you. Like there's shamans, and they're often singing songs and sort of kind of performing, kind of leading a ritual. But like each individual is just in their own trip. There's no real support. That's kind of the point. I think for some people that could be really powerful. And I think for other people that can be really just unproductive. Whereas like the work we do is much more, it kind of blends a spiritual lens and a therapeutic and coaching lens. So we are going to be there to support you, and we are going to help you like process and make sense of the experience. And for us, a big part of it is that even while you might be facing some of your deepest fears, you're doing so in a way that you know you have support right there. And that to me is actually a transformative factor in the work we do. Is like we help people finally access some of the deepest fears and traumas that they've been carrying around that are getting in the way of their happiness, or getting in the way of their connection with their families or their success or limiting beliefs. And we're unpacking that, but we're doing so in a way that also it's like you kind of go back to a memory that you have that's like really challenging, but also in that moment you have people there supporting you. And so you're not alone anymore. And suddenly you reprogram that experience to being one that was like overwhelming, and I was alone and I couldn't do anything about it and it was terrible, to being like, oh, I can process it. I do have support. So I think that people got to kind of like, that was kind of a complicated answer, but I think when you're doing
it was a great answer. Like
I think when you're doing psychedelics, the main thing is to really like be thoughtful about, it's not just the thing you're putting in your body. It's not just the substance. It's like there's a whole process, and it's the people you're working with, right? It's like so much like, it's so much of it is like, what's the energy of the facilitators, and what's their mindset, and what is their belief systems, and what's the energy in their nervous system that they're going to be transferring to you during that experience? Like because during a psychedelic experience, your consciousness is wide open. I'd say that with 5-MeO, especially, your nervous system is quite open. So like there's an energy exchange happening there, and you want to be really careful about who you're allowing into that space when you're going to open up like that. You know what I mean? And
you just mentioned the nervous system. I read up on and it affects the nervous system. Actually, what I read, it can actually benefit the nervous system. Is that
Massively, man.
correct? Yeah,
Massive,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
5-MeO in particular, that's one of the reasons we work with this medicine, is that like at high dose, this does something at the level of the nervous system that is, it's just profound. And so like we've had people come with pretty severe PTSD who leave going like, I just do not have those symptoms anymore. Like I just
Wow.
left, they just left the body. What I'll tell you, what happens during a 5-MeO ceremony is that generally we start at a low dose and we work our way up to higher doses. 5-MeO works very quickly. So you vaporize it, you inhale it. It basically, each dose is only anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. It's like very short. And in a single session, we're typically doing 3 to 5 doses. And so the whole like a whole sitting is only about 2 hours long. I mean, everybody's with us for multiple days because there's a whole process we take them through as well. But at the peak of the experience, basically, like I said, your identity dissolves, your mind basically comes offline, and your nervous system just opens up. And a lot of times people just start like purging sound, like they might start screaming or laughing or crying or talking or shaking, like full body tremors, which is basically like a lot of our trauma is actually stored in the muscle and fascia. Mm-hmm. And the energy of that trauma gets stored in tension, and people's body go into full body tremors, and they just start releasing, like the body just releases this massive amount of energy. And people come out just feeling like, some people report that it just feels like they just lost weight. Like it's like emotional weight they were carrying around is just flushed from the body, where they feel like, man, I can finally like breathe into my belly. I felt so tight. I was always breathing up in my chest. You know, I didn't feel, or I constantly felt anxious, or I didn't feel safe. And suddenly like I feel relaxed. So this like massive shift happens in the body. That's really, really powerful. It's pretty wild.
And you also do breath work, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of breath work. Yeah, both pre and post psychedelics. And then also we work with people sometimes who aren't really ready for substances or don't want to go to substances. You know, sometimes we work with people in recovery and whatnot too, or they just don't want to do psychedelics, you know, like even for reasons like yourself, you're like,
right.
I had some exposure to seeing stuff that didn't make me comfortable. Like breath work is a really powerful way to access basically psychedelic states just through breath.
Yes. I did some Wim Hof stuff. So I'm really into cold plunging and sauna and stuff like that. So this one experience with Wim Hof breathing, this guy took us through. Literally, we were laying down and we were doing these breathing exercises, and there was a moment where, I mean, the entire sky and surroundings just felt like I was in heaven. Like it was just from breathing a certain way. So I could certainly see how there's some deep, reactions to that. Yeah. And that was a great experience. But that was also like one of those situations where I felt like I came away from feeling like I needed more people around me that I trusted.
Yeah.
Because there was a little bit because there was strangers and the breath, because there was some, like the breathing is so intense. Sometimes you feel like you're going to pass out, you know? So, I kind of felt like my deep thoughts were thinking like, man, I wish I had somebody here I really, knew and trusted a little bit more than these random people. So to your point, that to me, when you're dealing with anything that you're not sure of, to have that safe environment 100%. Sounds like it has to be super important. Let me ask you a question, because I just thought of this, because this is also something that's happening in Miami. Do you know what? And I have no clue what it's called, so I'm hoping you know. But there's these people that are doing these retreats here in Miami with what they call natural MDMA. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, yeah,
it's not MDMA. It's another name. It's like I think it starts with an
San
S.
Pedro, maybe. It's probably San Pedro, or sometimes it's referred to as Wachuma.
Wait, what? Say that again.
Wachuma.
Wachuma. Oh no,
Wachuma or San Pedro.
I'll ask. But
But
I've been
like
asked to do that too, like a lot. Like
a,
people are
a,
like, "Hey, we're getting together this weekend, and we're all doing this."
right. So
So
essentially, there is like there's a cactus that is essentially it is basically MDMA. It just comes. It's in a cactus, and you take the outer layer of the cactus, you cook it, you drink it, and that's what I would think of as nature's MDMA. But
okay,
I don't know. It's kind of the Wild West, so there's a lot of things
actually in
going on
Miami,
right
it's
now.
definitely the Wild West
Yeah,
here. So
Miami is like you add the Miami flavor to the Wild West of psychedelics, and you get a whole other thing going on.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, I would love to know, like, so what is is there anything that is there a disclaimer? Like, is there any, like, could this happen? Like, is there any risk involved in these kind of things from
Yeah.
a medical standpoint, from a, I read a little bit of, like, from a psychosis standpoint, like, you hear people on like bad trips,
Yep.
and then I've even heard horror stories about a permanent bad trip. So like, is there any like disclaimer like that? Like,
Oh, for sure.
is those things possible? Like,
Yeah, for sure. Like I think there's a lot of hype around psychedelics, and there's not enough people there's an honest, like there's an important conversation around safety. And like, so first off, what's interesting is that most of the classic psychedelics, DMT, LSD, mushrooms, all of these things, mushrooms in particular, are actually exceptionally non-toxic, and they're exceptionally safe physiologically. Like in fact, like mushrooms is one of the lowest toxicity of anything you could really put in your body. It's like compared to aspirin, it's like way down the list. And like,
oh wow,
compared to anything,
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's like remarkably non-toxic. And then a lot of the traditional tryptamine drugs, like I said, LSD and others, are physiologically very, very safe. MDMA, of course, is an amphetamine, so has some physiological considerations. Now, used in like a moderate, in a proper way, it's generally going to be safe for people. But certain people, if you've got heart conditions or if you've got super high blood pressure or some other kind of issues, there can be some physiological risk. 5-MeO, the one we work with, definitely there can be, if you have any kind of irregularities in your heart rhythm or like issues with your heart, we have to do a proper physical screening. But generally, like it's pretty low percentage of people that are in that category. And if you were particularly out of shape, like 5-MeO certainly raises the heart rate, like not intensely, but into the 110, 115 range. But if you're very out of shape and you have very high blood pressure, that could be a consideration. So the physiological issues are generally, and this is not totally true for all substances, that ketamine has some risk, especially when used too often. It can cause issues in the bladder. Like there's a lot of people who are starting to use ketamine much more recreationally, and it kind of becomes a dependency. It's kind of just like another alcohol or something where it makes you feel good, so you start using it, and then you start using it more, and it can have some serious issues in the bladder and other things. But generally, the traditional psychedelics from a physiological standpoint are pretty safe, and most of them, not all of them, there's no overdose. You couldn't consume enough mushrooms to die from them. There's just no way. Like you couldn't overdose on. In fact, even LSD, which is a very strong drug, there's known cases where people accidentally took like 200 hits or 300 hits of acid, and now they had a very not a fun day.
Oh my God.
Not a fun day, but from a physiological standpoint is very benign. The big consideration is on the psychological side, and that's where you got to be that's where we do a very careful job screening people to make sure that they are ready for the experience. And I think mushrooms, I'd say, is kind of like entry level, at least low, like unless you're doing 10 grams or 15 grams, then it's not entry level, but like 3-4 grams, it's going to be a very intense experience, and you should have a safe person to do it with who knows what they're doing to make sure that you don't do anything crazy and feel safe through the experience. But then the drug, as the drugs get stronger, there's a higher and higher risk of psychological, fallout, which for some people, it's like they have such a big spiritual awakening that they actually don't know what to do with it, right? Like if you don't have any
Right.
relationship with God or religion or faith or something bigger than you, like you're kind of like walking through life basically as an atheist, and then you have this experience of, oh my God, I'm actually part of everything, and there is no me, and is there a me? And like it can be, there's a thing called depersonalization that can happen where you start to like dissociate with you as a person. And like there can be some psychological stuff that happens if people aren't in a good place, you know what I mean? Like if they aren't in a good psychological place, or if they don't have enough framing and support for the experience.
Right.
Of course, there's definitely certain types of people, who have, like, there's certain conditions that have to be very careful around psychedelics. If you are more on the, like, schizophrenia is kind of an obvious one,
Right.
because, just to be careful with that. But there's also some people who don't have any sort of symptoms of that, but they have family members, like they might have a brother or sister or a parent or who experienced issues around dissociative disorders. And if you're in your 20s, you really don't know yet if you're going to experience that. Like a lot of times that doesn't emerge until you're in your 30s.
Right.
Basically by your early 30s, if it hasn't happened, you're likely okay. But people can have fairly dissociative experiences. And so if there's any kind of risk there, or family profile where there might be risk there for borderline personality disorders or dissociative disorders, you want to be very, very careful when it comes to psychedelics. And then other than that, I would say that like one of the big disclaimers is just that psychedelics aren't a magic pill. And a lot of times people talk about just, like inviting you to go do ayahuasca. It's kind of like, well, what's all the other parameters around? It's not just taking the substance and everything changes and everything's better. It's like, again, what kind of environment were you in? What kind of preparation did you have? What kind of integration did you have? Are you prepared to open the door to a broader awareness of what life is about? And when the answer is yes, then psychedelics become an option to me. And if you're not ready to see the world from a broader perspective, or you're kind of like it's not going to be very helpful if you're trying to just hold on for dear life or whatever. There's certain guys,
Right.
there's certain people that are very fearful. Like, there's certain people in my life that I would love for them to experience psychedelics, but I also know that they're in no way, shape or form kind of psychologically ready for what it's going to show them. It's going to be too much. It's going to be too intense. It's like, one thing I say to people is that 5-MeO, I would say, is the equivalent of doing like 10 years of therapy in 3-4 days. And,
Wow.
and, that, on the one hand, that sounds fantastic when you kind of consider like, oh man, wouldn't it be great to get the outcome of 10 years of therapy, right? And what I'm really saying is 5-MeO DMT compresses time, and it pushes you through a process that is like could be very, very intense, depending on what's under the hood for you, depending on what you're suppressing, right? And some people, it's like a multi-month process of like really facing some of their deepest fears or deepest depressions or deepest belief systems and unpacking that in a very short order. That's a beautiful process if you signed up for it and you understand it and you're ready to do the work, but it's not a great process if you're not ready for that. It's kind of like if somebody comes to you and wants to like gain 30 pounds of muscle mass, like in X amount of time, you say like, well, there's a price to pay for that.
Right.
Like that doesn't, you don't just get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're definitely, coming from a place of care and making sure that people are in the right place, which sounds way different than most people I talk to about this stuff. They're just like, yeah, come to the retreat. We're going to, we're all going to sit around a campfire and do this, So
yeah.
it's very respectful that you're doing it in such a high level.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So what's the, like now that you're in where you are, like, what's your purpose? Like, what do you feel like, why are you doing this? And where do you want this to go? Like, is this something that you feel like you're trying to make like like Starbucks, or like it's like the DMT of Starbucks, or is it something that I'm joking, by the way, but
No, I know.
yeah.
It's funny because a friend of mine, like our kind of inside joke, because he knows that how kind of considerate and actually slow we're moving in terms of growing this in any way. But he'll once in a while just text me as a joke. He'll text me like 99 billion toads served, or like, McDonald's slogan.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like, because he knows like we're the opposite of that basically. But
that's why I said what I said. I knew that wasn't.
Totally.
I know that's not the goal, but
yeah,
it is. But I mean, it's kind of interesting to me that now you're in this position, right, where you're in a very leadership, like people now are really relying on you to lead them.
Yeah.
So when you're in that position, like now who's taking care of you, kind of thing, like now, like how do you protect yourself from what's coming, which is a lot of people seeking this, and you're kind of having to, but you can almost find yourself back to where maybe before you sold or exited another company, you know what I mean? Like you could almost ruin it for yourself. Like, if it gets to a point where now it's like more of a business and not more of a, so how do you, and I hate the word balance, but you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you
I feel you.
decide, for you, because I feel like you've really found a great place. Like, I don't know, it sounds like you have, like you're in a good place, like, which is what everybody wants, But by the way, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have a 25-year-old.
Oh, wow. Oh, you did. I did read that. I'm sorry. I apologize. I did read.
That's all good. Yeah.
25. You look 25. Like, what are you talking about? 25. I guess you did. I mean, yeah, you're 43, so you could have a 25.
It's actually my wife is 45. She had Paris when she was 20. I adopted her when she was 13. So that's the story. So she came into my life as a 13-year-old. Yeah. And she's
that name too. Paris is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Paris is amazing and really changed my life. But okay, to answer your question, like what are we doing, or what's kind of interesting, man, is that when I sold, even way before I sold my business, my wife and I always talked that like the next businesses we did were all going to be product based, and like businesses we could run online and live a lifestyle, travel and not, kind of really like an entrepreneur mindset, right? And we'd both had service businesses, and it was like, okay, no, the next thing is going to be different. And then we started doing this work, and at first we were just doing it kind of experimentally, like just with groups of friends and friends of friends, and we weren't really charging for it at the start. It was really just to like do this work, just to like offer these experiences in a safe way, and kind of just, and then it just evolved very quickly. And what struck us is that like we are now in the phase of our life where all the things we've done in our life are culminating into what we do, and this is like the highest purpose work I've ever done in my life. This is like what I would just refer to as God's work. Like we kind of just think of ourselves as a church, like a very small church that services people, and we build community. And when people who came to see us 2 years ago need support and they're going through something, they call us and we talk to them and we support them. And like, we're very much like this kind of grassroots type thing. We are a for-profit business that is trying to build something, but it's, like you're kind of pointing at something that's really interesting, is this balance between the entrepreneurial instinct and spirit of building something with feeling like this is the deepest purpose work we've ever done, and we just have to be so focused on continually coming back to the real reason this is why we're doing this, and why like folks like Dan are in our lives and supporting us and whatnot, is because we're impacting people's lives dramatically, and to just focus on that and not worry too much about the like scaling, and not to move too fast that we lose track of the I guess like the importance of every single person we serve or that we work with, we could have a really positive impact on their life. Or if we're not paying attention, the potential is that we could really harm someone. And I've never really been in a space like that where like, you know, like the substances we work with, I kind of think of it as like brain surgery or doing, you know, it's like, you got to be super on point all the time, every time. There's no second chance. And so I guess this has been an interesting time. It's also been a healing journey of me getting out of the entrepreneurial trap of just wanting more and competing and comparing myself to my friends and how much is enough. And, you know, me and my buddies used to all just say like, what's your number? And have, you know, is it 10 million? Is it 50 million? Is it a billion? Is it, and honestly, man, like above a couple million or whatever, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like honestly, even a lot lower than that really in real reality, but we get to live in a bit of a different space. And so it's been like, part of this has also been the healing journey of letting go of the parts of me that want to do this or want to grow this for the sake of my ego or my how many people know who I am or any of that, and like come from a place of actually I'm just here to like spread the word about this work, to help people as much as possible, and to do so in a way that is like as aligned with my values and as possible. So it's kind of just an interesting dance. And some days I wake up and go, oh man, I just want to double down and raise a bunch of money and build 3 more locations. And then of course, like 5 minutes later, I go, that's insane. That's not how this works. This is going to be a very different thing. And it is growing, and our community is growing, and the people that come to see us are coming from farther away. We've had people coming from Asia and Europe, and like these things are, you know, it's naturally evolving, but we're also just trying to take a very tempered pace to the whole thing, I think, you know? Yeah.
That was a great answer. I think you're locked in, so you got it. You're gonna struggle with that though. So
I know, man. It's just there's always
it's human nature. It's
we want to build things, man. We want to build things, and when you're an entrepreneur, you just can't help but see the potential. And part of it for me is that there's lots of people who I think are doing really kind of crazy things in this space, but because they don't care as much, they are moving faster, and so you know, you can't help but go, oh man, like are we gonna be over like surpassed or these, you know? And sometimes it's like, I just had a conversation today with these guys that said, well, word is out about 5 and everybody's buying these vape pens, and like you said, your buddy offering you a DMT vape pen, maybe we should make vape pens and just at least educate people when we give them to people. And I just thought like, no, that's like, just because that's happening, I'm not going to rush what we're doing. What we're doing is like is like, I love the name of your studios. It's like, this is a legacy play. This is not about winning against anything. This is actually completely the opposite of that. This is like, I can't wait to see what I'm doing. I'm 43. I can't wait to see what's happening when I'm 53. Like, and how much more rich and developed this work is, and how much better perspective I have on what I'm doing even a decade from now. That's the real mission now, is depth, not
right. Yeah.
scale.
Like how it actually, I mean, it'd be great to see like how perfect is a bad term, but like how do you perfect it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get it to where it's the greatest experience, you know, like in everything from the time they sign up to the time they leave to the, like, it just, you're almost like your systems, like, are they just improving? Cause that never stops. So that's something that you can and then with that, all of a sudden now you're the Rolls Royce of this. Like you're the one that you don't have to do a cajillion a year. You only have to do, 3 or 4, whatever. So, and then I would say another question that popped up in my head is, how often do you do it?
Oh, 5-MeO?
Yeah. For yourself.
Yeah, I probably do it. Maybe not. So I don't work at the high dose very often. Like maybe once a year I might do it high dose, and then maybe 3 or 4 times I'll work at lower doses. So I don't do it a ton, but that's more than most people.
Yeah,
most
yeah. More than me.
yeah, more than you, more than most
More
people.
than me. Yeah.
It's interesting in this space. It's kind of wild. I think that's another thing when people are seeking out practitioners or somebody to work with is like, how much is that person actually, like, how sober is that person, or how much are they using substances, and how does that make you feel? Like, just finding your comfort level there, because there are a lot of people who work with these substances who are doing it like every week, or, microdosing every morning with 5-MeO, like with these strong substances. Or there's a lot of people who get pretty lost in the sauce a bit about it. You know what I mean? It gets a little murky. These substances, you have to be really disciplined. I think that's kind of been our approach. I think we're probably the most sober psychedelic guides you'll meet. I mean, we also don't drink, and we live very healthy lifestyles. It's kind of interesting, because part of what we do is our energy and our nervous system has to be so clear and so primed all the time for the work we do. I equate it actually to like a pro athlete. I don't need necessarily the muscle mass or the agility necessarily, but I need to be like in peak condition all the time. So I can't afford to drink, and I can't afford to, I need good sleep. I need good routines. I need all of that kind of stuff, so that when I show up for my clients, or when people are here, when we're hosting a retreat, like we're in as good a shape and as good a form as possible. So it's a very
there's
mindset.
so much clarity that comes with being in the best shape of your life, and
yeah, man,
and taking care of yourself and getting the sleep and nutrition that you want. It's people really. I just saw something that somebody was talking about, like literally just doing 10 minutes of exercise before a meeting can like completely change the way your mind works during the meeting, or if you find yourself like with writer's block or struggling with something, like literally go do exercise, and it opens up that clarity. So yeah,
even breathing, like even taking a bunch of big breaths before a meeting, like it just getting your cardiovascular system going is just remarkable. Like, and getting the blood vessels to dilate a bit, and it's remarkable what's possible. Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. So I really appreciate it. Like I've learned a lot, and
thanks,
and I hope this was good for you. But thank you so much.
I really appreciate it, Manning. I just want to say, like, your energy and your clarity is so beautiful to witness. Like it's been really neat to meet you in person on this call, and I just imagine that your faith and your connection to your faith and is got to be part of the reason why people just see something special in themselves. And so thanks for giving that gift to so many people, man. It's amazing.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you. And we got to get you down to Miami. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly. Tell Dan to pick you up on the private jet and to take you down.
I know.
Here.
Get PJ time. That sounds
good. PJ Dan.
Yeah.
Thanks,
man.
man.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk soon.